The financial industry is built on trust, but with cyber attacks becoming more common, how can the trust be maintained moving forward? There may be a solution, an internet immune to cyber attacks, secure by design. Computer science professor Adrian Perrig and his team at ETH Zurich are working on a highly secured internet called SCION. But be careful, once you use it, you might not want to go back to the current internet. Let's find out more in today's finance.swiss interview. The Swiss National Bank and 6 Swiss exchange have been using SCION for a few years now. So how can industries such as the financial sector benefit from it?
SCION can mainly help with the networking aspects and provide high levels of availability for the communication, which is of course very critical. In a transaction processing system, if you cannot communicate, you cannot process the transactions. And so SCION plays an important role for any place where online transactions are needed in order to ensure high availability, so that if there's a denial of service attack, a DDoS attack, or also a routing attack, your communication cannot be blocked and you can continue to process your transactions. However, there's many other aspects to security, of course, including also the secrecy of the data. And here SCION can help by avoiding that the data leaves certain jurisdictions or goes through areas of the internet where you don't want the data to go through. Even if you encrypt your data securely, data can be stored and in some cases and then saved and trying to be cracked at a later point in time. For instance, when quantum computers come available 20, 30 years from today, or when an algorithm vulnerability is detected, then someone can store the data and a year or 10 years later crack it, which is a problem. And so SCION then enables to ensure that the data does not traverse certain jurisdictions or does not traverse certain parts of the internet to then prevent these kinds of issues.
So what you're saying is that we need a revolution and not an evolution of the internet. So what aspects exactly are you trying to change from what we have?
In today's internet, many of the fundamental systems have been designed 30 to 40 years ago. And this is very similar, to make a comparison, to the road system, right? So we have a lot of innovation in cars, but there's very little innovation on the road material itself. And similarly, on the internet, there's a lot of innovation on the side of applications and web browsers and websites and so on. But very, very little innovation exactly similar to the road system in the fundamental communication structures. These protocols are literally 30 to 40 years old that we're still using today. And one can count on the fingers of a single hand how many innovations have been occurring in the last year. So it's really quite striking. And so in SCION, we rethought the entire architecture of the internet, and we try to see how we can make use of more modern mechanisms and newer research using all the research results from the last 40 years in a new way. And we're able to also redesign the entire system from a security perspective. Mm-hmm. So every aspect of SCION was designed to make it highly secure and highly available against attack. And in today's internet, security was very much added as an afterthought, which causes a lot of problems.
For those who think about Herzog and de Meuron when they hear the word architecture, tell us briefly how the internet is designed and how your architecture of SCION is different.
It's similar to the architecture in the real world. Networking also has architecture, and it's perhaps apparent to people working in the field, but there's also trends in networking. And one trend that we're introducing is the trend of path-aware networking. So in today's internet, packets traverse the network similar to letters in a postal system. You throw the letter into a mailbox and the postal service takes the letter and brings it to the next entity and so on and so forth until it gets to the destination. Whereas in SCION and in path-aware networking, the sender first obtains a set of paths from the network and selects one of these paths. So when you send the packet, you already know the exact path the packet will take. And this then leads to a lot of advantages, doing it in a completely different way than how today's internet works.
So these packages cannot be hijacked while they're traveling somewhere.
Right, exactly right. So one aspect is not only that you know the path it's going to take, because in today's internet, you send a packet, say from Zurich to Geneva, and it could be that its packet goes through Frankfurt or London, in some cases even through Stockholm, and that can cause regulatory compliance issues. And in SCION, you can embed the path such that the packet goes directly from Zurich to Geneva, say via Bern, and does not leave Switzerland, for instance. And similarly, you can use the same system to ensure that traffic stays inside the EU or doesn't traverse certain jurisdictions.
So hearing all that, there's many benefits. When will everyone be using SCION? So when will it be as recognizable as Google?
It could actually be deployed in the near future on everyone's cell phone. And this is particularly because of the higher speed that SCION enables. So we found that for a web page, a website where the server is more than 500 kilometers away, that SCION can reduce the time of download for the web page by about 10 to 20%. And the advantage gets larger the further the web page is away. With this, obviously downloading web pages faster is of very high interest to industry, and this can massively accelerate the whole SCION deployment once these forces start to play out.
So what you're basically saying is once you try it, you don't want to go back to the current internet?
That's absolutely what we always say. Once you experience SCION, you cannot go back anymore. Like, it's similar to once you drive in an electric car, and you see all these benefits, it's also hard to go back to the standard ICE cars. And so very similarly, the entities who start working with SCION, they then get used to all those benefits, the multipathing, the fast failover, the ability to optimize connectivity, to reduce exposure to jurisdictions that are not trusted, and so on and so forth, absence of routing attacks. Once you experience all this, it's hard to go back to a single path internet that doesn't give you any of these choices, and you're at the mercy of the network to do with your packets whatever the network wants to do with it.
Professor Perrig, thank you very much for taking your time and also for working on such a secure network.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.